Hillary Clinton and Julian Assange reveal the real truth behind U.S. wars and nation-building initiatives.
20 years ago. And we did it because we were locked in this struggle with the Soviet Union. They invaded Afghanistan, and we did not want to see them control Central Asia. And we went to work. And it was President Reagan, in partnership with the Congress, led by Democrats, who said, you know what, sounds like a pretty good idea. Let's deal with the ISI and the Pakistani military, and let's go recruit these mujahideen. And that's great. Let's get some to come from Saudi Arabia and other places, importing their Wahhabi brand of Islam so that we can go beat the Soviet Union. And guess what? They retreated. They lost billions of dollars, and it led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. So there's a very strong argument, which is, wasn't a bad investment to end the Soviet Union, but let's be careful what we sow because we will harvest. So we then left Pakistan. We said, okay, fine, you deal with the stingers that we've left all over your country. You deal with the mines that are along the border. And by the way, we don't want to have anything to do with you. In fact, we're sanctioning you. So we stopped dealing with the Pakistani military and with ISI, and we now are making up for a lot of lost time.
What do you think?
Yeah, so that's very interesting, of course. It's nice when the puppet masters pull back the veil and show a little bit of what's been going on behind the scenes. And obviously, we've discussed it in the past that Al-Qaeda was formed by the CIA in order to fight the Soviets. And then the minute we left, they turned around and they used those same stingers, those same weapons to attack the United States. Basically, identify the ideologies of the people you're going to arm, because just make sure that they're fairly closely aligned with your ideologies, because otherwise it's pretty likely to come back and bite you.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's like a 3D chess. They're playing this game, and then we pull out, and then what happens? So we are having to deal with things that we created. And like she said, in her mind, it's, and obviously this is an older video, but it basically shows the pattern, and it shows the thinking in government, certainly in US government, because of our strength, because of our scope. We could literally change the dynamic of other countries. And you could say in the short term, she says it helped destabilize the USSR and it collapsed.
It did.
But then what? And where are we now? And all the terroristic acts and all these things that are happening. And politics makes strange bedfellows. It's really interesting, the people that we're being associated with, and where are we now? So that's Afghanistan, another one of these wars that she alludes to. Look what happens. They went, she was like, she mentioned the Russians, and then they wanted to push them back. What happened with Afghanistan for all those years? And then what did we do? Pulled right out. We lost lives that we shouldn't have lost. We left people behind that were supportive of the United States. We just abandoned them. We still remember the videos, people literally clinging to the military aircraft, leaving and falling off the plane. They were desperate to get out of there. It was just atrocious. I believe that there's actually, I think it was today that there was actually mentioned that there's going to be an investigation into the departure from Afghanistan and how that was conducted militarily. But that aside, you have to wonder, why have we been present in so many places for so long? And it's these endless wars that are supposedly there to somehow help the United States and the world. And you question, is that the primary goal?
So in a previous, maybe the episode before last, we discussed how with the war of Pakistan and India, how these terror attacks against India were caused by these terror organizations that were backed by the ISI, which is the Pakistani intelligence, who are notable for working with the United States and the CIA, but are also notable for funding the terrorist organizations that fight the United States. And what we're seeing here is this video must be like 30 plus years old. And even back then, we were funding the ISI to fund terrorism, basically. And when people complain about the spending in US aid and stuff like that, it's like a whole bunch of that money was going to fund terrorism. So just chop it, right? Just chop it. If there's anything really valuable, then it'll be transferred to the Department of State, and it seems what has happened. But the vast majority of that was just trying to influence the world, and not in a positive way. And that is something that needs to be investigated.
Ultimately, I think it's important to look back at some of this and understand really what was going on and make sure we're okay with it. That's all. And if we're not, to fix it and to make people accountable. And if we're okay with it, then to move forward. But it needs to be looked at. We're always saying, oh, that was in the past. We don't want to look at it. Afghanistan, again, a prime example. People not only lost their lives, but it was, in my take, reckless how we left Afghanistan. And it just shouldn't have happened. And I think it painted a certain picture, an inadequacy of the US military, which caused the door to open to some of the other things that unfolded militarily because they felt the US can't even leave Afghanistan without causing the mess that it had there and leaving all that equipment behind. Yes, they'll argue a lot of equipment was donated to the Afghans. Yeah, I understand. This is high
To
end.
the Taliban.
But yeah, it wound up being in the hands of the Taliban. That was the bottom line. We have a clip from Julian Assange, who was the exiled WikiLeaks founder, and he speaks openly and publishes a lot of information that otherwise would have never been available. That's why he had to be in exile. But ultimately, there's a clip which talks about the Afghanistan war specifically and the US operations there. I'm not sure if you saw it, but I'd like to put it up. It gives some context from his perspective as to why the US is involved in all these things.
Let's take a look.
Because the goal is not to completely subjugate Afghanistan. The goal is to use Afghanistan to wash money out of the tax bases of the United States, out of the tax bases of European countries, through Afghanistan and back into the hands of a transnational security elite. That is the goal, i.e. the goal is to have an endless war, not a successful war.
Nearly every war that has started in the past 50 years has been a result of media lies. The media could have stopped it. If they had searched deep enough, if they hadn't reprinted government propaganda, they could have stopped it. But what does that mean? That means basically populations don't like wars. And populations have to be fooled into wars. Populations don't willingly and with open eyes go into a war. So if we have a good media environment, then we'll also have a peaceful environment.
I agree.
Yeah, those are two very interesting points. The first is that they're both intertwined, right? Because in democratic countries the people don't want wars, it's expensive, it's very tax burdensome, it can end your life, you can forcefully be drafted. Just war isn't fun, it's pure hell. And like we saw with the Iraq War, that the American people were lied to and convinced to go after the weapons of mass destruction. I have no sympathy for Saddam Hussein. He was probably one of the most evil men in recent history. He was just completely destructive even to his own family members. Just like pure, sheer evil and like psychopaths gone crazy with endless power and gold everywhere. And I'm very happy that his evil regime fell. But the United States did instead is said, hey, we got rid of this evil dictator, let's replace it with democracy. And then we had democratic elections. And in a country like Iraq, which is majority Shia, which is the minority in Islam, but was ruled by Saddam Hussein, who was Sunni, and then suddenly you come and you say, hey, let's have free elections, that means the majority rules. And now you just replaced a Sunni nation with a Shia nation because suddenly the majority is in control.
I agree. I think they're both important, but obviously he makes the point that a well-informed populace wouldn't want to. War is obviously the last possible option. No one wants that on the table for your family, your friends, and yourselves. Bottom line is, do we really want to, does anyone want to be at war? And the answer is no. And there's a certain cost that may come with those decisions, but they think it's a well-earned cost. It's people are expendable, buildings, entire cities collapsing might be just the cost of achieving whatever goal that they have, and then wondering where all the money's being funneled to. There's been a lot of criticism with the massive, now yet unaccounted for money going to the Ukraine. No one's saying that the US shouldn't support the Ukrainian war and help out in the role that we have been, but there's been a lack of accountability, and to this day we don't know where a lot of that money went. President Zelensky has admitted that openly, that all the money that people say that he received, he says he never actually received most of it. That being said, that's why when you hear the narrative in the media, when you hear people calling for this or that, when people are calling for peace, they want peace. It may not always mean what you think it means.
Be sure to watch our other clips and shorts and the entire episode 12 of The Yojo Show.